Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Welcome to part 2 of preparing my Serissa japonica for the fall bonsai shows. In part 1 of this video, I changed the front of the tree slightly and I pruned up the top canopy. In part 2, I'm going to be preparing the landscape and cleaning up the trunk. It's got a lot of green algae on it, so I want to clean it up so it looks more like a desert tree. I've cleaned up the trunk before on this tree, and I've just used soap and water and kind of scrubbed the trunk. And I find because this bark is really loose and flaky, I always lose a few plates of bark. But I still have a month before the shows, and I think it'll look quite good by then. Some of this bark is a little too flaky. It just kind of flakes off anyway. So I think I'll do that. I think I'll get out the soap and water and scrub it all down. I'll place a towel around the base of the tree just to keep the soap and water off of the soil and out of the root system. I don't think it hurts the roots at all, but just to make sure. So I've got my thing of soap and water, and it's approximately 40 parts water to 1 part dish soap. So I'll spray the tree and use a toothbrush. So here I go. And hopefully this will get rid of all the green algae on the trunk and make it look a little more like an acacia tree type bark rather than a tree that's been grown in high humidity. Just like brushing your teeth. I'll use rainwater to rinse it and see how I'm progressing. That seems to be working well. So I'll want to scrub all these branches too. They're kind of a bit on the green side. I'll rinse it with the rainwater. Oh, it's making a real difference. You get some nice colors in the bark too when you scrub it. You get some of this kind of reddish color and it looks pretty good. And I find with flaky bark that you can overdo it. I've seen some pines and that the bark is so flaky that it doesn't look miniature. It looks kind of, you wouldn't see that in nature, bark that flaky. So I like to kind of scrub the trees down every now and then and get rid of that really flaky bark so the plates look a little more miniature on trees or the bark. So I was reviewing the footage when I was editing part 1 of this video, and the trees changed a lot. I pruned it into more of a rounded canopy, and I've tried both styles with this tree, kind of more of a flat top canopy with a line underneath the tree, and I'm not really sure which I like better. One is maybe, I don't know, they're both realistic styles. You see acacias growing with flat tops, you see rounded tops, you see somewhere in between, you see the branches separated into distinct pads, you see ones that are just a massive green on top like an umbrella. So it comes down to just personal style, I think, what appeals to you, and I'm not really sure which I like better yet. I do like, the flat top look. The rounded look is kind of more a Pierneef or maybe a little more artistic interpretation of an acacia. But you do see some pretty rounded top ones in nature, and it may depend on the species of acacia. Some might get flatter tops than others. And You know, if I were to go to Africa, I could check them all out, but all I have is the internet to look at pictures and try and figure out what species is what, and you just do your best. Research from afar. So you have to watch. The branches on these Serissas are quite brittle, so you don't want to be like too rough with the toothbrush. Okay, let's have a look at it now with the rainwater rinsing off the soap. Oh, that's looking nice. Really brings out the colors in the bark. That looks really good, I think. Yeah, I like that. There's a look at the trunk up close. You can see all the cool colors in it. Yeah, you lose a little of the flaky bark, but I think the gains are well worth it. I'll continue to clean up the bark on the tree, and we'll come back and have a look at it. And I think by then the sun should be shining on the tree, so we'll get a really good look at the bark. I have finished cleaning up the trunk, the roots, the branches on the tree. So here's what it looks like wet. It's quite interesting. So I'll let it dry and then we'll come back and see what it looks like. Outside today it is 28 degrees Celsius and really humid. There's a chance of rain tonight, and then it slowly starts cooling down. So this might be the last warm spell of the year. We might get one more maybe, but who knows. And it cools down pretty good at night still. So I don't mind the warm weather in the daytime.
Hi, little kitty. You coming to see me? Comes the little kitten. Hi. What's up? Hey, what's up? Just coming to get petted? Nothing wrong with that.
I've waited about half an hour and the trunk is still wet. It's so humid out today that water just isn't evaporating very quickly. So I'm going to go on with the landscape. So I was thinking of putting a layer of sand first, and I can always plant moss on top of the sand. Sand is a really good base layer for moss. It seems to really thrive in that kind of wet sand environment. And you still have your bonsai soil underneath, which is good for the root system. So I think that's my next step, applying sand. Now I'll have to take the soil layer down a bit. It's too high. So I'll have to rake away some soil. And then I've got to decide what color of sand. I can put white sand, which might look too bright and artificial. I can put playground sand, which is a nice tan color, which would look quite natural, but maybe isn't bright enough. And I usually use a mixture of half white sand, which is industrial sandblasting sand, and half playground sand, and that seems to make a nice light tan mixture, kind of a nice desert tan color. So I think I'll go with that mixture of half and half, see how it looks. I've got my tray underneath the pot to catch all the bonsai soil, so I'll start raking it out, and my goal is just to make a level landscape. I don't think I need any hills or anything. It would just take away from the tree. There's some moss here that's grown all by itself. I'm going to peel that off. And I can always apply moss bushes if I want to do that. Or a whole layer of moss. There's some more moss here that's formed. So I just want to take it so this bonsai soil is below the lip of the pot, so I can apply the sand. And I still want the sand slightly below the lip of the pot too, so and nice and level. And there's my little kitties in here. He's been hanging around me today. There's the little greenhouse kitty. Hello. You came in the greenhouse to get petted, eh? Very good. Yeah, you're a good kitty. You're gonna flop down and play, are you? Always playing. Yeah, oh, you're licking my hand. Thank you. It's very kind of you. Yeah, very kind of you. Yeah, you're a very nice kitty. I think Julian's going to take this one with him to college. This one's a real suck. Whew, it's getting warm in the greenhouse here. 35 degrees Celsius and pretty well 100% humidity today. It is very, very humid out. I'll have to make sure I drink lots of water today. Keep myself hydrated. I think the low tonight is 19, which is, you know, not real low, but it's certainly will feel good after today's heat. I love when it cools down at night. I like hot afternoons and cool nights. Best weather ever. The trunk is now dry on the Serissa. So there's what it looks like dry. The branches. It's quite a difference. It really brightens it up. Gets rid of that green algae. So I'm going to continue the work on the landscape, getting the sand down. I took a little break. I was editing part 1 of this video. It was getting very hot here in the greenhouse. So I went in and got a drink of water, did a little editing, and now it's cooled down. It's only 35 in the greenhouse now, which is pretty good. I'm just using my hand now to get rid of all this excess soil here so I can put down my layer of sand. There's a few roots sticking up here in places, but they'll get covered up with the sand. So a lot of these desert plants have roots that really reach out far from the trunk because they're searching for moisture all the time. So that's kind of the look I'm going for with the Serissa, is to have these long roots coming out from the root base, and you know, over time they'll thicken up and become more noticeable, but it'll be a good look. Okay, I think it's getting pretty close to being able to put the sand down now. I've got it down to a pretty good level here. I've got my pail of sand mixed up here. So there's the color of it. Desert tan color. So I'll start spreading it on the surface here. And I've never noticed any bad results from putting sand on the surface of your bonsai soil. It's really no different than putting a layer of moss on the soil. It's kind of, holds a bit of moisture in maybe. Doesn't seem to mix with your bonsai soil at all. So I find it quite good. So after I've got this sand layer on, I'll water the sand to level it out, and it will reveal any high spots or low spots where I've got to maybe remove some more of the bonsai soil, maybe add some more sand. Okay, I think that's good for the first attempt. So I will give that a water, settle all the sand down, and then I'll have to pick out pieces of perlite and work on the landscape until I've got a nice layer of sand on the planting. All right, here I go with the water now. This tree certainly is getting watered today. Here's a look at the tree now with the sand layer down, and it definitely changes the appearance of the tree. It looks like a tree in a desert now. It's kind of a nice look. So my next step, I've got to pick out all this perlite sticking up, and then I've got to plant moss and decide if I want to add rocks, make it a real kind of penging landscape, or go simple. I think I do need a landscape because it's such a large pot. I think it needs some, I've always put rocks over here, and sometimes I have my zebra there. I think it needs that. Because it's a realistic looking tree, I think it needs a realistic landscape underneath it. That's my feeling anyway. If I didn't want a landscape underneath it, I think a smaller pot would suit the tree better, but because it's in a large pot, I think it needs sort of a detailed landscape. It is getting towards the evening now. I don't know where the time went today. The other day I had Jeff from Bluewater Bonsai come visit the bonsai zone, so it was really nice to have him over. I've seen Jeff at all the bonsai shows in the area for many, many years, so he finally came up and saw the bonsai zone. And he brought me a gift, and I'll show you that. So here's what Jeff got me. It is a Madagascar elephant tree. So you can see the fine leaves. It's a succulent tree, and I've always wanted one. Ever since I saw them at the Toronto Cactus and Succulent Show, I've always wanted one. They can get quite large and quite tree-like. And they're quite expensive to buy, so thanks very much, Jeff. I really appreciate the gift. I'll try and take really, really good care of it and try and develop it into a really cool looking tree. I have another update today, and that is my desert rose, and it is in flower, my adenium. So there is the flower, a beautiful flower with stripes. So I think this is the first one I've had flower. I usually kill them long before they flower. So I'm going to try keeping my desert rose in the house this year, just like a house plant, instead of in the plant room where it's too humid for them. They just rot even though I don't water them. So I'll just keep it in the house as a regular house plant. I won't water it all winter, or hardly water it, and then we'll see how it does. Bluewater Bonsai is an online bonsai club that you can join, and I believe it's based in Chatham, Ontario, Canada, but you can join them online on Facebook, and I'll put the link in the description below. Thanks very much for the gift, Jeff. It's really appreciated. I also had Eric, if you remember Eric and Emma on the channel. He came down the same day that Jeff came down, and he was after some cuttings, those Frank Yi corkbark jade cuttings. So Connor had clipped off a bunch, and I took them home with me, so he picked those up. And he really wanted some cuttings off of my other Portulacaria that I got sent to me, and I've done really nothing with since I got them. So if you notice, there's an empty spot on the bench here. I said, Eric, instead of just taking the cuttings, just take all the plants, because I have my Portulacaria forest, and that's all I need. I don't need, 3 other varieties of Portulacaria. I kept my Frank Yi corkbark jade ones here. Those are the only ones I kept, but all the other Portulacaria I gave away. Eric really loves Portulacaria. He kind of specializes in growing them, so I think he'll really appreciate them. So I think they all went to a good home. It is getting really dark out now, So I didn't get very far on my landscape today. I got a base layer of sand down, and that's about it. I didn't get a lot of work done today at all. So tomorrow I am going to continue working on this landscape, trying out rocks and moss and grasses and whatever else I can think of, trying to make this look like a miniature landscape. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. It is a beautiful evening out now. The temperatures are cooling down. There's a nice sunset over there. Fantastic. I see my spider is out in the greenhouse here. So this spider's been in the greenhouse pretty well the whole year. And it's getting really large. I don't know if you can see it right there. There it is. There's the size of my finger. And it catches all kinds of bugs in here. That's the reason it's so big. The spider just caught a fly in its web. So it's wrapping it up now. And I noticed there's another one up there already wrapped up. So he's caught 2 tonight so far. That is why this spider is so big. It's well fed. And luckily it spins its web here so I can still water all my trees. It's never been a problem. Oh, there it goes. It's taking it to the center of the web. And it'll probably hang upside down and eat it, I think. Down here on the floor of the greenhouse, I have my ficus that I grew from a seed. And I wrap the trunk with this towel. And I keep it wet at all times. And I wet it in the morning and it stays damp for the whole day. And you can see there's roots growing out of the towel, aerial roots. So it's definitely keeping it moist underneath the towel. It should promote a lot of roots. So I really like this technique. I'm going to use it on more of my ficus. Just wrap the trunks with a towel, keep it wet, and I think it'll be really good for generating aerial roots. It's much easier than like wrapping plastic and sphagnum moss around the trunk of your tree. You just wet a cloth, wrap it around, and watch the roots grow. I'll continue working on my Serissa japonica, doing all that landscape work in part 3 of this series. So that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.